Shalom and welcome to Inside Israel News, your source for unbiased and thorough analysis of Israeli news, politics, and current events in the Middle East. I'm your host, Mensch-Kight. The news cycle never stops, and things are very, very exciting right now in the sense that a lot of things are happening. So I'm going to dive right in here, but it's just a lot. So let's start with some of the big news. Humanitarian aid is flowing back into Gaza once again. Israel does close the checkpoints when there's violence because we don't know what's going to come through those checkpoints. And obviously Israel searches for weapons, which the Palestinians continue to try to smuggle into the Gaza Strip. But humanitarian aid in terms of food, medical supplies, and other such is flowing back into Gaza. Israel provides a significant amount of that, but you won't hear that in the media now, will you? In any case, that is happening. There was a stabbing incident near a Jerusalem police station. A soldier and a civilian were injured. More attacks on Israeli civilians. It never stops. Bibi Netanyahu has implied that Israel may act unilaterally against Iran as he awaits a trip by United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken. This is very important to Bibi Netanyahu, who has always been number one on security politically. The recent conflagration has raised his stars a little bit, and now he's kind of standing up to the U.S. administration a little bit, pointing out that Israel will take action if it feels its security is threatened by Iran, whether the United States approves or not. Now, that tone that he takes with the Israeli media and the Israeli public versus the tone he'll take behind closed doors in terms of his private conversations with Secretary Blinken, we don't know. But at the very least, there's some posturing going on that Israel is willing to act independently, if necessary, to maintain its own security. Speaking of Secretary of State Antony Blinken, he says it is unclear whether Iran is intending to rejoin the nuclear deal. So the administration may be backing off of its policy there a little bit. It's not clear what's going on at this point. As I mentioned, several EU officials said that significant progress had been made, but now Secretary of State's kind of walking it back a little bit. So we'll see what happens. Now, in my opinion, I'm questioning whether the administration may just be waking up to the reality. Iran is not our friend. Iran is not a rational player that we can sit down and negotiate a reasonable deal with. Iran is a terrorist regime run by religious fanatics who seek the destruction of their enemies and want to take over and dominate the Middle East. And obviously, if we let them do that, if we let them harm Israel and take over the Arab countries and ultimately destroy Israel, we will have a new Germany in the 1930s in the Middle East. And it'll be, another world war to get rid of them, this time with nuclear weapons. So that cannot be permitted to happen. Secretary Blinken also seeks to prevent U.S. aid from reaching Hamas. And this is one of those challenges that, as I've talked about, when U.S. aid goes to the Palestinian Authority, it invariably ends up in the hands of terrorists. Well, first of all, the official Palestinian Authority in Ramallah is run by an organization called Fatah. Some refer to it as a party, but Fatah is not a party. Fatah is a terrorist organization. It is the terrorist organization that was run by Yasser Arafat. It is currently run by Abu Mazen, which is the sort of terrorist name for Mahmoud Abbas, who's the president of the Palestinian Authority. As I've mentioned before, he was elected to a 4-year term back in 2005, and he's still president. No new elections, but he's still in charge. So, great democracy right there. So Blinken wants to keep it from reaching Hamas. That's great news, but I mean, when you're giving money to these people, they're not going to use it to build schools and roads and factories and encourage economic development and other such. They are going to build rocket factories. They're going to pay the families of those who victimize Israel, those who commit terror. Their families are going to continue to receive pensions, and of course, they're going to pay for their security apparatus. People who are, officially police officers or part of the paramilitary Palestinian Authority official police organizations for controlling their country are, by day, supposedly uniformed police officers, and by night they are Fatah terrorists who are, just as bad as the rest. And as I've mentioned before, if you've listened to previous episodes, Fatah in the security state in the Palestinian ruled territories is extremely oppressive. They have 1 in 5 people paid to watch or monitor the other 4, which is a higher ratio, as I've noted, than East Germany. In East Germany, 1 in 6 people were paid to watch the other 5. Well, in the Palestinian territories, between paramilitary and police forces, they have 1 in 5 who are charged with watching the other 4. So, nice people dealing with there. In U.S. news, there's been a wave of anti-Semitic beatings and attacks since the rocket fire began in Israel. This is just a terrible thing. So many Jews have been beaten just walking down the street in New York or in other cities, and it is not permissible. The anti-Semitism, attacks on Jews, hate crimes against Jews. This is the number one hate crime in America. Everybody, screams racism. We're a country of racists and all this kind of thing. But when it comes to actual violence, the greatest amount of violence perpetrated against any ethnic group in America, the number one hate crime is committed against Jews. Anti-Semitic attacks is the number one hate crime. If you looked at the statistics, and not the rhetoric that comes out of the media and what have you, you would understand that Jews are the most oppressed group of people, the most maltreated group of people. From college campuses to the streets of inner cities now, we are the most oppressed group of people in the United States, the most mistreated. I guess they were oppressed. People would talk about socioeconomic things. And the fact is, everybody, conspiracy theory, all Jews are rich, right? We're all bankers and accountants and fund managers, right? We're all rich and we're all powerful and this kind of thing. But the reality is a large number of Jews are landsmen, as we say in Yiddish, just normal, average, everyday people. I come from a working class family. Not all Jews are rich, okay? And we want to be able to walk down the street safely with our kippot on, our little hats on our heads, wearing our Magen David, our Star of David, on our necklaces or what have you. My children wear T-shirts that are, Jerusalem, Israel, and IDF T-shirts. I want us to be able to walk down the street safely in this country, and that is becoming increasingly problematic. Okay, who commits these attacks? Well, first of all, they're mostly committed in deep blue cities. So in the paragons of tolerance and peace and love and the hardened fortresses of the left, where we're supposed to have peace, love, and tolerance, that's where most of these attacks are happening. They're not happening in rural Texas. They're not happening in rural Kansas. I live in rural Kansas, and I will tell you that here everybody loves Jews. Haven't had any problems. But they are happening in New York. They are happening in Chicago. They are happening in deep blue cities. Who's committing these attacks? A number of the most egregious attacks over the past weeks have been committed by Muslims living in the U.S., but the second largest group who commits these attacks are African Americans. For some reason, and this is a terrible truth that nobody seems to want to talk about, but that needs to be addressed, African Americans have become increasingly violent toward Jews over the past few years. And this has been ramping up for about a decade. It's not completely understood. I don't understand that there's no rational reason for blacks to attack Jews. I don't get it. I don't understand it, but it is happening. And it's not anything against that particular racial group of people. It's just that these attacks are being perpetrated in large part by that particular group. So we need to find a way in this country to engender a true, peaceful, secure attitude and end the violence. Speaking of which, President Biden has called for an end to the, quote, despicable anti-Semitic attacks. Of course, it would be nice if we had a little bit more force behind that. The former president, President Trump, has had executive orders defending Jews on campus. He took strong action to protect Israel, and his rhetoric was always solidly in favor of the Jewish people. No one has done more to fight this anti-Semitic nonsense, these despicable kinds of attitudes and attacks, than Donald Trump has done. And President Biden has big shoes to fill there. So just calling these attacks despicable is not enough, Mr. President. You need to get out there and be active, proactive on campuses, repealing the executive orders that redefined anti-Semitism on campus that were designed to protect Jews on campus does not help our cause. So you're promoting more despicable attacks while you're calling the attacks despicable and saying they should stop. Actions speak louder than words. I'm waiting for the action. I want somebody to sell me, okay? In Jerusalem, meanwhile, a couple of Jews who attacked an Arab man during the riot are going to be charged and prosecuted. This is something I talked about a couple episodes back. There were some extremist Israelis marching in Jerusalem shouting death to the Arabs. We wholeheartedly condemn and do not tolerate those kinds of attitudes and certainly those kinds of actions among our people. We have extremists. The Jewish people are as diverse a people as any, so we have our fruitcakes and our nut jobs as well, and we condemn them. We do not placate them or support them. And in this case, these men committed a crime. They attacked a person, injured a person, and they're going to be punished. The Israeli court system is going to put them in jail, and they're going to go to jail as if they had attacked any other Israeli and committed any other heinous crime. Okay? Justice comes first. When people commit crimes, acts of violence that are outside of the realm of self-defense, obviously if you're attacked, that's a different thing. But when you assault someone, when you threaten them, when you batter them, when you attack them, when you aggravate that by beating them half to death, those are crimes, and you will go to prison for it if you are an Israeli who commits these acts against other Israelis or residents within Israel. And again, we put justice first. All right, coming back from the ad break, and before I get back into the news, I just wanted to reiterate again, as I had in a previous episode, if you wish to offer your help to Israel and support Israel, that is very, very much appreciated. If you are able to, even small amounts go a long way. If everyone gave $10, $15, $25, that would add up over time. If you would like to, the two organizations that I highly recommend are Magen David Adom, which is the Israeli branch of the Red Cross. You can find them at afmda.org, afmda.org. And that organization, like many Red Cross organizations, provides medical care, treatment, and assistance within Israel emergency services. The other organization I highly recommend is Friends of the Israeli Defense Forces, FIDF.org, FIDF.org. FIDF is an organization I've fundraised for some time, actually. They provide support services for soldiers, religious and other services. They help soldiers who don't have family to go to or to support them. And they provide educational resources for orphans and financial resources for widows of soldiers and so on. Just an all-around good organization. Again, Israel doesn't have the financial resources to provide a lot of help to soldiers and other such within the, from the government itself. It's a relatively small country, and they do the best they can. But FIDF, Friends of the Israeli Defense Forces, certainly does what it can to help out. All donations are very, very much appreciated. Those who bless the nation are themselves to be blessed. So we appreciate that help. And obviously, continued political support. Before I go into the political section here, I'm going to talk about politics in Israel. I just want to note, I'm going to kind of blaze through this a little bit because I want to get on to the next section talking about defending Israel. It is helpful if you go back and listen to some of the earlier episodes. The episodes, especially 1 through 15 and all of the supplements, they cover the political history, the candidates, the parties, discuss the political personalities, some of the history of these elections and events. And I also have several supplements that cover the structure of the Israeli government, how politics works, how elections work, and the court system and things of that nature, so that get you caught up, because I'm just going to run through a lot of names and a lot of things. Now, those who've been listening consistently, you're going to know what's going on, because these are just the latest updates from past episodes. But I just want to note, I don't intend to confuse anyone. I just have to save a little time. So the general political mood on the Israeli street, from what many of my friends have told me personally, and this is, love him and hate him. You had people who love Bibi and the people who hate Bibi. After the Gaza conflict, they feel that Bibi's star is rising. And while the deadlock persists, he's still struggling to form a government. Neither side, the pro-Bibi or anti-Bibi group, have been able to find 61 seats, a majority of the 120 seats of the Knesset. But there's this feeling that Bibi is stronger. Bibi has always been really strong on the economy. He's very well known for prosperity. He's well known for a number of other policies relative to Israel developing the oil and gas industry. Israel has a large offshore oil reserves that it can tap into, and they're starting to develop that and develop their own natural gas and their ability to become an oil exporter. It's kind of a funny thing. We used to joke that of all the places in the Middle East that Jews could live, we lived in the one place that has no oil, right? But it's all offshore, apparently. So now we're able to tap into that. But Bibi's big issue, the thing that has made Bibi Netanyahu stand out above all other politicians, both personally and as part of the Likud party and its movement, is security. Bibi has always been Mr. Security. Security has been his big issue. And we're familiar with this here in the U.S. The Republican Party tends to have better numbers on security. When you talk about, who do you think provides better national security? Generally, the Republicans get a better props on that, more favorables than the Democrats do. When you ask about education, it tends to go to the Democrats, things like that. So in this case, Bibi Netanyahu, very much the same thing. If you poll people on who provides, excellent security in Israel, Bibi's numbers are going to be very high relative to other politicians personally, and Likud's numbers are going to be higher than a lot of other numbers as a political party. So Bibi is stronger after the conflict. He's getting a lot of criticism from the right for not being tough enough on Hamas, and the left is kind of getting to have it both ways. On the one hand, they're kind of quietly echoing a little bit the whole Bibi could have been tougher, criticizing the way that the military operation was handled, but at the same time, they're also from the left, we should do more to foster peace and that kind of thing. So kind of speaking out of both sides of their mouth. I mean, it's politics. The whole forked tongue thing is common. I'll remember a famous headline from in Britain where one of the third parties was running to the left and the right of the government, and that was a great moment in political history. It's like you can run against your opponent from both ends, right? Hit them both sides. Anyway, so. As I mentioned before, when Naftali Bennett, who leads the Yaminah party and has 7 seats in the Knesset, when he was negotiating with Bibi Netanyahu, back when Bibi had the mandate to form a government, the issue was that Naftali Bennett wanted a rotation in office. He wanted to be prime minister first, and Bibi Netanyahu does not want to give the prime minister's office to anyone else. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is that Bibi Netanyahu has been charged with a number of crimes. Again, as I've talked about before, there's some suggestion that there may have been some wrongdoing, maybe pushing things a little too far, whether it rises to the level of a crime, whether there is a criminally provable, from an evidentiary point of view, a provable quid pro quo, that there was actually a direct conversation. If you do this for me, I'll do this for you, that would have been illegal, is not entirely clear. It may be that conversation never took place, but maybe, they did do things for one another. He did favors for his political friends. It seems fairly clear that is the case. And those friends did political favors for him. The question is, did they actually discuss it? Was there actually a crime? And Bibi wants immunity from prosecution for those charges, right? And he wants to remain prime minister primarily because it shields him from the charges. And some say that's a sign of his guilt. Others just, it could be pointed out that, I mean, if he leaves office as prime minister, then, the police are going to come arrest him, drag him out of his house, and, it's going to be a very embarrassing and negative experience. So maybe he just wants to avoid that. Anyway, there are a couple of different ways of looking at that. But those were two of the big issues in dealing with Naftali Bennett. And now that the conflict has happened, Likud has offered a much, let's just say, a much stiffer deal to Naftali Bennett. They have offered Bennett the defense ministry and the position as acting PM, acting prime minister. The acting prime minister is kind of the number two. A few years back, when Ariel Sharon had his second stroke and was no longer able to act as prime minister, there was a bit of a constitutional crisis because the deputy prime minister, who technically takes over in that situation, was just an office like the vice presidency of the United States that goes to somebody who's largely politically irrelevant. And there was no succession plan for the office to go to somebody who would really be the person who would be next in line to be prime minister. And so they created the office of acting PM so that someone in the cabinet is designated that when the prime minister goes on a trip out of the country, when the prime minister is incapacitated, like under surgery or what have you, that person takes over as prime minister. Well, that's basically the closest you can get to being prime minister without being prime minister for Naftali Bennett, but it is still a downgrade from the possibility of his being prime minister, right? So it distinctly shows that Likud and Bibi Netanyahu feel that they're in a stronger place politically now vis-a-vis Bennett and the change bloc. Bennett has criticized the government's actions during the conflict, generally from the right, that they didn't do enough, they could have done better. And he says he is still open to discussing with the change bloc. But at this point, one of his party members has refused to vote for the change for Yair Lapid or any kind of coalition led by Yair Lapid, whether Naftali Bennett is prime minister or not. And that creates problems internally for Yamina. So it's not clear whether he'll even have the votes to do that if he wants to. All right, the leader of the religious Zionists, the far-right party that represents a conglomeration of extreme-right political parties, Bezalel Smotrich, I've mentioned him before, and so you'd have to kind of go back and learn more about them. But they're not right in the sense that we think of, like libertarian economic freedom and all this kind of thing. They're right in that the government should forcefully crack down on whatever they don't like and forcibly remove people and things of that nature. So they're not your grandma's right-wing party. In any case, Smotrich has said that if Bennett will join the coalition with Bibi, he believes that he can pry away members of the New Hope Party to join the government. Now, the New Hope Party is Gideon Sa'ar's party. Gideon Sa'ar broke off from Likud. He was a Likudnik. He lost the most recent leadership challenge against Bibi, so he was trying to become Likud's leader. He recently left Likud for this election and ran independently in the hopes that he could be prime minister instead of Bibi. He ended up getting 6 seats out of 120, so 5% of the seats. And he was kind of a flop. Well, several members of his party, now that the conflict has happened, are under a lot of pressure to join the government. But Gideon Sa'ar himself promised not to serve in any government with Bibi, so he can't. But maybe a couple members of his party who are under a lot of intense pressure might join. And if Naftali Bennett will join the right-wing government, so Bibi Netanyahu and his close allies have 52 seats out of 120. They need 61, so they need 9 seats, right? Yamina has 7. And if Naftali Bennett will negotiate with Bibi, they can get all 7 of them to vote for Bibi. So that puts them at 59, just 2 seats shy. Well, New Hope has 6 seats, and if just 2 of those members will break away from New Hope and vote with Likud, vote with Bibi, then they have a majority. It's a narrow majority, but it would be enough to get a government in office under Bibi Netanyahu and end the political crisis. If that doesn't happen, and if Yair Lapid is not able to form a government that can compete with Bibi, he has until June 2nd, excuse me. He has until June 2nd to form a government, and then his mandate ends, after which there's a 21-day period where anyone can form a government, and if no government is formed then new elections will be called. So by the end of June, we'll know whether there's going to be a 5th election one way or another. And obviously the 4 elections that have happened over the past 2 years are unprecedented, so obviously a fifth would be equally unprecedented. So that's kind of where things lie politically. It looks better for Bibi than it did before. There's a lot of pressure on the right and when I say pressure on the right, not just like right-wing politicians, right-wing voters, people who voted for Yamina, for Naftali Bennett, only a quarter of them were willing to support his joining a government with Lapid, even if he was going to be prime minister. So that tells you something. These voters do not appreciate the effort to get rid of Bibi Netanyahu, in large part, and they want a right-wing government, even if it's led by Bibi. So there's a lot of political pressure, people who want to protect their political future and their good name and their opportunity to win re-election. And that's the key to democracy and accountability, is that you want to be able to continue in office, you have to do what the people demand, what your voters and your constituents demand of you. And they're demanding even more strongly than ever before in the past months that they join a strong right-wing government. So with that, that's the political news in Israel. So during this conflict, I encountered a number of, let's just say, troubling arguments against Israel. Some of them the usual suspects, some of them more problematic than others. So I'm going to go over them. If you are like me and you're somebody who gets into scraps with people in social media and, you get your friends emailing you stuff, oh no, look at this, and you want to be able to respond, I want to arm you so that you are better able to defeat these dumb attacks, because all of them are absolutely inane. I mean, it requires no intelligence whatsoever to spout them. If you apply any kind of intelligence, it breaks them apart. But that's just my opinion. So there are a number of problematic ones. The first one comments on my Facebook page, among other things, at Inside Israel News on Facebook, and comments on some of the articles about Israel there. And a good friend of mine himself started receiving emails from acquaintances about this. This one is the most troubling of all of the arguments, in my opinion, and that is the protocols of the elders of Zion. If I sound a little bit, I don't know, it's so ridiculous that this comes around all the time. When I was in college, there was a young lady I knew, and she asked me one time, because she knew I was Jewish, she said, my boyfriend wanted me to read this protocols of elders of Zion. What should I do? And I said, find a new boyfriend, because those kinds of fruitcakes you don't need. All right. So the protocols of the elders of Zion are literally Nazi propaganda. I have a great article I have shared on the Facebook page that you should look up. It's from the Holocaust Encyclopedia, and it explains all the history of this stupid work. It's based on a French political satire that had nothing to do with Jews, and Russians plagiarized it to turn it into anti-Semitic propaganda in the Russian Empire. And then the Nazis grabbed hold of it and found that it was a perfect justification for the Holocaust. Okay, so if you are sharing the protocols of the elders of Zion, if somebody is sharing that with you, if people are spreading this around, this is literally neo-Nazi propaganda. You are literally, this is literally the work of the people who slaughtered 6 million Jews in concentration camps. So, break out the Zyklon B, break out the, head for the shower rooms, the gas chambers, and the ovens, because this is what helped to cause that one of the greatest tragedies in human history, right up there with the great famines of China and the mass deaths in the Soviet Union. This is a terrible, terrible thing that happened, and the fact that it happened to Jews in particular is what makes it especially egregious. This one particular religio-ethnic group that was nearly, our population in Europe was more than cut in half by the Holocaust. So that's the tragedy waiting to happen when people share that kind of nonsense. So if you hear from someone the word protocols, or they send you an email, oh, check out the protocols, this, you see this kind of thing, reply just, hey, take that swastika armband off your arm, put your arm down, stop shouting Heil every time someone says Sieg, take off the jackboots, and leave your Sturmabteilung, your stormtrooper battalion. Okay, this is Adolf Hitler, Hermann Goering, and this is Heinrich Himmler. Okay, this is evil, evil stuff. the people who perpetuate this theory, and if you hear people talk, oh, the Rothschilds, same thing. The Rothschilds conspiracy grows out of the protocols of the elders of Zion. Okay? If you're advocating for this, you're advocating for the mass murder of Jews. One more time. If you're advocating for the protocols, you are advocating for the mass murder of Jews. There is no greater evil than that. So, that's that. All of these anti-Semitic attacks on Israel also come out of this general sense in this protocols kind of plays on that Jews are these sniveling, conniving trolls with long noses and horns on our heads, and we're devious and we drink the blood of Christian babies, and this kind of nonsense that the Jews are always conniving and conspiring and all of this kind of thing. Guess what? Jews are people. Tickle us, do we not laugh? Prick us, shall we not bleed? And wrong us, shall we not revenge? We're people, okay? I'm just a guy. I put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else, okay? The fact is, there is people point, oh, there's this vast conspiracy with the banking and the Rothschilds, and, how many Christian bankers are there? How many secular bankers? How many bankers from other countries, Oh, but it's the Jews. Oh, good Lord. It happens that Jewish people have a tendency to be smarter on average than the general population, and we value education and we promote education among our children and what have you. So, yes, there do tend to be a lot of Jews who are very successful in business and find their way into high government office and that kind of thing. We should celebrate that fact. If you think that's, if you're aware of that fact, then learn from the Jews and do what the Jewish people do. Teach your children from a very young age to learn, to enjoy learning, and value their education. Right? We just had the religious holiday of Shavuot, had a gathering in my house with family, friends, and community, and we had a long discussion of Hebrew and reading the book of Ruth, and just a lot of fun talk and thought. And my children were there along with the children of several other families, and they're part of an environment where they're learning and growing, and they see the value we place, the high value we place on education, being erudite and knowing what you're talking about. Okay, so the other argument, the next argument we get is rockets are falling on Israel. What do you expect when you steal people's lands? Really? This one I find especially, again, Jews are devious, sniveling trolls who drink the blood of Christian babies. So, of course, we stole the land and we're conniving and conspiring against the people who live there. So, with this one, I always just ask who stole it? When? How was this land stolen? Because most of these people really don't have the intelligence to know anything about what was going on. And there's, the Jews took it. But no, when the Ottoman Empire controlled the Levant, which is the region in which Israel lies, historical name for it. When the Ottoman Empire controlled the Levant, Jews began moving back there. They bought land. They owned titles that say, official seal of the Ottoman Empire, and they lived on that land just like all of the other residents and citizens of the Ottoman Empire. When the British took over, there was the Balfour Declaration that said there was going to be a Jewish state. The United States and Britain signed a treaty guaranteeing that there would be a Jewish state because the United States was concerned that the Brits might renege on their promise, as they kind of did. And so Jews bought land. The titles on them say British Mandate of Palestine, British government. They were the people who were in charge there. The League of Nations gave them a mandate to govern that land. And so Jews legally bought land there and lived. There's nothing illegal about any of that. Who stole what? Right? The Arabs, who some of whom owned that land, who sold it to Jews, they got money for it, and they lived well. And as I've talked about before, demographically, while large, hundreds of thousands of Jews moved to the British Mandate of Palestine during the 20s and 30s, so did hundreds of thousands of Arabs. There were jobs. There was economic activity. There were more opportunities in the British Mandate of Palestine than there were in Egypt or Lebanon or Syria or Saudi Arabia or Iraq. So these people moved there. People like, the Arafats, who were Egyptians, right? As in Yasser Arafat. Okay? And you have people like Mahmoud Abbas. Abbas is a Syrian name. Now, granted, a lot of the native Arabs to the region consider themselves Syrian, and they're part of the greater pan-Syrian Arab culture. that name is fairly common there, but still, that's a family that's from Syria. So then there was a war. All right, the United Nations in 1946 put out a partition plan. They said, okay, well, there are Jews living there and there are Arabs living there, so we'll just split the baby down the middle. And half of the land in the, quote, British Mandate of Palestine will go to the Jews as Israel, and the other half will go to the Arabs as Palestine. The British had tried to keep the area all Arab, the Clement Attlee government being, especially anti-Semitic, did their best to try to prevent the creation of the State of Israel, but the Israelis continued to resist British rule there. That's right, Israelis resisting imperial colonial rule. How can we be imperialists and colonialists if we were fighting the colonizer ourselves? Right? Literally. The Israelis had a factory for making guns that was hidden under a laundromat. And they were fighting the British just alongside, just as the Arabs were fighting the British, just as the Indians were protesting British rule, as the people of South Africa were seeking independence from Britain. All these independence Israelis were just another one of those. Anyway, the UN peace plan was put forward and the Jews agreed. The Haganah, the Jewish community that was elected by all of the Jews living in the British Mandate, voted and they supported the peace plan. They were willing to accept the partition, complicated though it was and convoluted though it was, as long as it meant there would be a state of Israel. Well, the Arabs, led by the Mufti al-Husseini, who was a good friend of Adolf Hitler, helped to recruit a Waffen-SS division in Bosnia. If you want to learn about some history that Americans never get to study, learn the history of the Handschar Division, which is what that division was called. The Handschar Division was an incredible, it's just incredible history when you learn about all of the horrors that division committed and its acts, but it teaches you so much about Balkan politics. They murdered Jews, they murdered Serbians, they murdered Croats. They terrorized the Balkans, and a lot of the members of that division escaped to the British Mandate of Palestine, and along with the Mufti Husseini, helped to found the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. This invented group of people, the Palestinians. Okay, so there was a war, right? Mufti Husseini and his group fighting the Jews, right? When Israel declared independence, when the British decided they were leaving, Israel declared independence, there was a war. Iraq, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, they declared war on the state of Israel, and they all attacked. And a funny thing happened. Israel won. The Egyptians eventually retreated. Everyone else was defeated and driven off, except the Jordan occupied a significant part of Israel, what the international press calls the West Bank, but is properly called the Shomron and Yehuda, in the middle of Israel, and East Jerusalem, the eastern half of Jerusalem, they occupied, right? That was a war, okay? The all kinds of claims by both sides that there were massacres. The Israelis have solid evidence that entire Israeli communities were slaughtered by the invading armies. There are all kinds of claims by the Arabs that one or two Arab communities were slaughtered by the Israelis. That's their claim. The Israelis say it didn't happen. If it did, perhaps, overzealous far-right groups did exist in Israel, but not on the scale that they're trying to suggest. The Arabs who left Israel chose to leave Israel. Now, as I mentioned, demographically, there were something like 200,000 Arabs living in the region when the British took over. Most of those people who were native there stayed. They stayed in Israel, they became citizens of Israel, and Arab women voted for the first time in Israel, right? Large number of the people who are expatriates, who fled to the Gaza Strip, who fled to the Shomron and Yehuda, choosing to abandon their homes, those people were mostly immigrants. People had come from other Arab countries. But rather than integrate them back into these other Arab countries, the Arabs kept them as fodder for a war against Israel. Okay, the Arabs lost a war. It's a sad and unfortunate thing. When you lose a war, you lose territory. All right? I don't hear any of these people, you stole the land, complaining about how the Soviet Union and Poland stole East Prussia from Germany. Okay? That's also a sad story. All right? Now, the Germans started a war with Russia, and they lost. So, I don't have a lot of tears for the Germans who lived there, but their lands were taken. People were forced off of their farms, forcibly removed from Poland, that area that used to be part of the core German East Prussian sort of military elite is gone. Okay? No one's advocating for giving it back. They lost. They started it. They lost. Just like nobody's advocating for giving Korea back to Japan. Or Formosa, now called Taiwan, right? I mean, Japan started a war. They bombed Pearl Harbor. They invaded China. Okay? They started a war. And they lost. Okay? The Arabs lost. That's it. Okay? And then they went and started another war in 1967. And just as they were about to launch their planes to bomb Israel from Egypt, the Israeli Air Force, knowing that they were coming, bombed them first. And Israel was able to defend itself, capturing the Sinai, then capturing the Shomron and Yehuda, liberating the Shomron and Yehuda and Jerusalem from control of the Arabs, and, of course, the Golan Heights, which are now officially part of Israel. They've been officially and formally annexed. And that's very important because they're right on the border with Syria, but these heights, these high mountains, overlook Israel. You can see the Mediterranean from the top of them, and you can look down on the whole of Israel. It's a beautiful view, but then you think about what somebody could do with artillery cannons up there, and you're like, I'm glad this belongs to Israel. And actually, most of the Arabs who live there are Druze. Druze are part of the Ismaili movement, sort of Socratic form of Islam, sort of a Socratic rationalist movement. That's a long story for another time. But they're really happy to be a part of Israel. They're better treated than they were in Syria at the time. So, if you talk to the Druze, a lot of them serve in the military. Several have served in the Knesset, and a lot of them vote Likud. They're very passionate about Israel as a safe country for the Druze, and they're very keen about that. So, again, who stole what land? When? How? Right? Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip. All of the residents, there were Jewish people who lived there, who were settled there, quote unquote, in the international press. We removed them, gave the Gaza Strip back to Hamas, to the Arabs, and the Hamas took it over. And now they fire rockets at us. So, that's anyway. As I said, all of these arguments are inane. Any kind of intelligence, and of course, when you make these, people are just going to blow up at you, oh, you mean you're racist, because there is no intelligent argument back. So that's why they do it. They just have to get upset because it has the anger and the emotion has to take over because no intelligent argument can be mounted for their cause. So. If Israel stole the land from the Arabs, then Poland and the Soviet Union stole land from Germany, and the United States and Russia stole Korea from Japan and Taiwan from Japan, and all of those territories should go back. And there's no argument that East Prussia should belong to Poland or Korea should be independent if Israel stole land from the Palestinians. Now, the last one is the dumbest of all of them. The protocols are dumb, but I think, they're especially inane. But a lot of people who get drawn into that, they're ignorant. They don't know what's going on. Maybe a friend told them about it, and so they're kind of cowed into it. I've met very few people who, really, are stable, healthy people who get into that. You get a lot of people who are insecure and maybe they don't want to lose their friends. So they hear it, you kind of have to be a little bit mentally ill to believe in that kind of stuff. No offense to the mentally ill, but people need to be educated away from that. But this one is really dumb. And that is Israel is committing genocide. You see the tweets going around, this is the first genocide where the party committing it is tweeting about it. When the IDF tweeted about how they might have a ground operation in Gaza. And as I noted, they did not have a ground operation in Gaza. Instead, they blew up the tunnels that were hiding terrorists and caused significant pain to Hamas and Islamic Jihad. All right. Israel is committing genocide. Apartheid state. All this kind of nonsense. I actually had a South African friend, just blow up. He's a black African, South African, and he was just furious on one thread that I was on because these people have no idea what apartheid was, and they're going out there and using this term like they have no clue. And so he was trying to explain to them intelligently what apartheid was like for black Africans when in Africa and how it's nothing like Israel. The Israeli Arabs live like other Israelis do. As I've mentioned before, it was a Muslim lady who worked at the grocery store that I shopped at. I was happy to have her check us out. There are Israeli political parties that are Arab, Ra'am, right? The Joint List. These are Arab parties that some of whom do not believe Israel should exist, and that's their opinion, and they have a right to have an opinion, whether we like it or not. They have a right to vote for whom they like. You go to Al-Fam, you can drive right in. There are no border checkpoints, no security posts. You go right in. There's beautiful mosques and good food, and actually the people are relatively friendly. For the most part, they like tourists just like anybody else. They want your money. But, I mean, generally speaking, I found people very friendly and very kind. No big deal, right? Now, when it comes to the Palestinians, yes, there's a security fence. Yes, there are divisions. No, they're not allowed to leave Gaza Strip and work in Israel. We did that. We tried that. And you know what happened? Buses exploded. Right, we allowed them free passage if they had security, had security verifications and ID and all of this. They were allowed to work in Israel, and there was some free passage. And then we had terrorist bombs on buses and at nightclubs. So Israel stopped doing that. We're not stupid, okay? If you keep falling down the stairs, and every time you go down, you think, oh, I won't slip this time. But every time you slip, I'm sorry, doing the same thing every time, expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So obviously, Israel learned that you can't allow the so-called Palestinian Arabs to work outside of their territories. So then, of course, Jewish businesses and international business tried to bring business to the Arabs so that they could work and gain economic opportunity. SodaStream and a number of other great companies went and set up factories that could have Arab and Israeli, Jewish and Arab and Palestinian Arab workers. And then we started this stupid BDS movement where they wanted to ban all trade with companies that worked in the Shomron and Yehuda, right? And so they shut down all those companies. So now there are no jobs for the Palestinians from those companies, right? So, I mean, all they do is try to perpetuate the conflict. Okay, Israel committing genocide. That statement that I made before is definitely true. If the Palestinians wanted peace, there would be peace. If Israel wanted the Palestinians gone, they'd be gone, one way or another, removed or what have you, okay? Israel has F-35 fighters, F-16 fighters. They have phosphorus shells and steel rain bombs. If Israel wanted those territories cleared, they'd be cleared. Okay, if we were the sniveling, conniving trolls with long noses and warts and the horns in our heads, drinking the blood of Christian babies, then we'd have whacked those people a long time ago. Okay, tell me what resources Israel lacks, or willpower that Israel lacks that the Nazis had, right? That supposedly we're going to be that evil, right? That we're going to kill these people. Why haven't we? Okay, it's the dumbest thing ever. If Israel wanted to kill the Palestinians, why would they restrict their fire to terrorist targets, to rocket factories, to things? And people, well, they're bombing hospitals. A hospital that was empty when it was bombed, this was years ago, and the basement was full of weapons. You can see, if you watch this video, go look it up on YouTube of the bombing of the Hamas hospital. The IDF took footage of it. You can watch. The first bomb hits, the building begins to collapse, and you can distinctly see there are secondary explosions, several of them, of the munitions underneath this building blowing up. That cannot happen if there are no munitions there. So, Israel doesn't bomb hospitals. They also provide free medical care to the unintended casualties that result from the bombings. So, that's there. Now, speaking of genocide, right, if you're firing rockets at civilian targets, right, the rockets that they're firing are not at Israeli bases, military bases, right? They're firing them at Tel Aviv and Ashkelon, at Sderot and these communities, at Beersheba, right? They're firing them at homes, schools, hospitals, right, where people live. People are being murdered on the streets next to their houses. I shared videos from the IDF of, houses destroyed. You can find that on my Facebook page. Houses destroyed by rockets. People killed with shrapnel, metal, steel rebar that are put in these rockets. So this is, this is horrible, horrible stuff. So, this is... Again, sometimes I run out of things to say. It's so stupid, right? The definition of genocide is the attempted annihilation of your enemy, right? Of an ethnic group or a group of people. Firing rockets at civilian targets is genocide, right? It's more genocidal. It is a stronger attempt at genocide than the deliberate targeting of terrorist targets, of terrorist leaders, terrorist infrastructure, like the Hamas hospital and the Gaza metro, the tunnels underneath the city. These targets are legitimate targets. These are targets of infrastructure and weapons and people who intend to murder Israelis and kill Jews. Okay. At the end of the day, all of these arguments, again, Jews being conniving trolls, it all comes down to Jewish lives don't matter. At the end of the day, it's okay to murder Jews because the protocols, it's all a Jewish conspiracy, or because they stole the land. So it's okay to kill Jews because they stole the land, or it's okay to kill Jews because they're committing genocide, right? Anytime you say that, okay, it's okay to kill Jews, no, it is not okay to kill Jews. It's not okay to kill anybody. Whatever cause you think your cause is so great, it is not a justification for killing people. So you just stop it right there. It is not okay to kill Jews. It's not okay to kill anyone without justification. All right? It is not okay to kill Jews because of anything. Whatever excuse you're coming up with, that is the textbook definition of anti-Semitism. You hold Jewish life to have less value than the lives of other people. And that's where we get this proportionality. Well, hundreds of people are dying. Only 10 Israelis have died. Only. 10, that no Israelis should die. They should live in peace. It's a democratic country, right? Those are voters. They don't want to be killed. So naturally, they want their government to protect them. That's why they elect that government. All right? So it gets inane, all right? So you'll have people, oh, well, I'm only an anti-Zionist, I'm anti-Israel, I'm not anti-Semitic. Yes, you are. If you believe it's okay to murder Jews because blank, whatever the blank is, then it's not okay. I use this argument, by the way, also for communism. I hear people, we need communism because racism. We need communism because global warming. We need communism because overpopulation. Stop right there at the we need communism. It doesn't matter what your excuse is. And usually those are baloney excuses anyway. But communism is worse than all of those things put together. All right, communism will kill more people, is more horrible than all those things. So we don't need communism. We don't want communism. Just stop that. No communism. There is no excuse that we should have communism that's worse than all of the excuses, worse than all the horrors in the world. All right, back to the thing. Okay, it's okay to kill Jews because there is no justification for killing Jews. We are the most attacked and persecuted people in the United States of America today. We are the most abused internationally by the media, by the press, by anti-Semitism globally, and it has to stop. And I hope I have helped to arm you with arguments to help stop it. But at the end of the day, there is hate. There's very real hate out there. And it is disturbing and it's upsetting. And, we can change hearts and minds one at a time, each of us. Okay. That's all I can say. I hope that wherever you are, listening, that you have not encountered especially hateful comments. I hope that you've not encountered violence. My God, they're beating Jews in the streets in the United States of America. I can't even believe I'm saying those words. I would never have thought in a million years growing up that I would ever say such things. To say that Jews are the most persecuted people in the United States, that's a horrible thought. And nobody should be persecuted, but that my people are the people being persecuted. This is horrific. So anyway, be strong. Keep up the cause. God is with us. Hashem will protect us and keep us in the way that we go, and we will persist and continue to argue against them. As always, your prayers and blessings for Israel are appreciated, and your support. And I personally appreciate it a great deal, everyone who listens and who stands with us. It is an act of righteousness to be on the side with the good guys. As always, please visit the Facebook page, Inside Israel News, on Facebook, so you can keep updated with news as events unfold, and also find the articles I've shared about anti-Semitism and such. And of course, you won't miss a podcast episode there. The podcast is also available on Apple, Spotify, and Podbean, and so many other podcast services, wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. And as always, politicalvanguard.com. Inside Israel News has a section there where you can find all of the, and find and listen through your browser if you like, all of the episodes that you're looking for on that website. So with that, I will say, Lahitraot, goodbye.
אולי נפליגה בספינות מחוף אילת עד חוף של הר ועל המשחטות הישנות יטעינו תפוחי זהב כל זה אינו משל ולא חלום זה נכון כאור בצהריים כל זה יבוא מחר אם לא היום ואם לא מחר